Is it on? Thank you for joining us, everyone. Tonight, we are going to be learning about maintaining our cars with mechanic Sally Dawson. She's the owner of Foxy Auto, one of the few woman-owned and operated auto repair shops in the country. Sally closed her shop to transition towards teaching about the skills and techniques that she picked up during her career. She's been featured in the Today Show, Motor Magazine, and the Boston Globe. Without further ado.
So thank you for coming out tonight. And as mentioned, my name is Sally, and I've spent the better part of 30 years in and around the auto repair industry, and 18 of those nearly 30 years was spent running my own shop. So I've seen a lot. And one of the things that made my shop a little unique was that I sort of did it my way. And didn't follow the normal techniques of sales pitching and upselling and everything that most shops would do. I ran it very, very honest, and my thought was that if I treated my customers very well, they would treat me very well, and that worked. So it was a very transparent shop, very, very honest, and I almost kind of grew up in a little bit of a bubble. Like I would hear about dishonest shops, but I didn't really know of any, so I kind of almost didn't believe it for a little while until I started to hear stories from my customers and started to experience firsthand with them some of the things that they were running into when they would have to go to other shops for various reasons. One of the downfalls of my shop was that it was very popular and it was very busy. So a lot of times I would be booked 2, 3, 4 weeks out, and people couldn't wait that long for whatever it was that they needed, and they would end up in another shop. A lot of times, like one of the big chain places, and they would come back with just these horror stories of being told they needed all these different repairs and services, and I started to kind of understand that there was actually what I would consider to be a problem out there with just blatant dishonesty in some cases, and then slanted sales tactics in other cases. And a lot of, because my shop was so busy, I spent a lot of time educating my customers to be better car owners, because I didn't have the time in my schedule to handle breakdowns and things that would have been avoidable. So I did spend a lot of time educating my customers how to avoid not only being sold unnecessary repairs, but how to avoid breakdowns and major repairs that started small and escalated into bigger, just because it's not good for them, and it really wasn't good for me because I didn't have that flexibility in my schedule. So after, I guess to kind of like give an idea of why I'm here, after 18 years, I did decide to close my shop for a number of reasons. And one of them was I didn't like the direction that the industry was heading. It was getting harder and harder to get quality parts. It was getting harder to take care of my customers. And I was just tired of it as well. So when I shut the shop down, it just kind of ended. It was like the equipment was tired, I was tired. I rented the space, so just wrote out my lease and eventually took my sign down, handed my key back, and shut the phone number off. And that was kind of sad, because it seemed like you put so much effort into this thing, and then one day it just doesn't exist anymore, and it was terrible. And so it took a little time, but I realized that even though there was no value, in the business when it ended, I didn't sell it because that didn't seem fair to the customers. I kind of realized that there was value in my experience with my customers. So I've been kind of working on honing that and trying to bring it to people, just to try to help people become more confident and independent car owners, vehicle owners, because we rely on our vehicles to get to work. It's very important. They're very expensive to maintain. It's only getting harder out there, and I just feel like the more you know and the more you understand about how certain sales tactics go, the easier it will be for people to navigate through car ownership. And I don't really have this totally dialed in, so we're just going to kind of clunky go through it. But one thing I do want to say is if anybody has any questions, I am absolutely an open book. So questions about my shop, questions about my experiences, questions about anything I'm talking about, or just questions that you've brought based on your experiences, or just anything you want to know. Because the most important thing here is that I give you valuable information. And so what I think is valuable might not be exactly what you're looking for. So just be comfortable asking questions. Just throw your hands up. So I did want to start with my kind of standout story, and this is when I realized that how the sales tactics worked out there for big chain shops, and this is where a lot of people get taken advantage of. And so this is usually what I start with because it's what I really want to get across first, and then we can get into anything you guys want to talk about. So this did happen to one of my customers, and there's a couple parts to this story, but it was basically one of my long-term customers. She needed an oil change. I couldn't fit her in for a couple of weeks. That wasn't good for her. It wasn't going to be smart to wait that long. So I told her, Allison, go down the street, just go to one of the big chain places, go in, you just need an oil change. We know there's nothing wrong with the car. We just went through it. You just need an oil change, just go do it. It's fine. So she goes in, and I get a phone call from her, and she's a little upset. And she's telling me that they're telling her that she needs all these services, mostly fluids, a couple filters. And what surprised me was that the feeling I was getting from her was that she was more upset with me than them, in that she believed that I wasn't taking care of the car as well as I said I was. And it made me realize that I don't want to say whatever it was that they were selling, she believed more than my truth. And so that kind of put my radar up, that whatever they're doing, they're really good at it. So I told her, say no to everything, get it in print, come to the shop, I'll stay late tonight, I'll do your oil change, and we're going to go through their recommendations together to figure out what's happening here. And so she did. She came in. And she brought me, this is just a photocopy of it, but a list of the recommended services that they told her she needed, right then and there. And so we went through it, and I was surprised because they were telling her that she needed transmission fluid service, front and rear differential, power steering, transfer case, radiator, fuel filter, and a cabin air filter, a tire rotation, and a belt. The tire rotation, maybe. The belts, definitely not, because we had already done it. And so after I read this list, what we did is I took her owner's manual out of her car, and we put them side by side, and we cross-referenced. And what we found was that, so she was driving a Nissan Rogue at the time, and the transmission fluid, the front and rear differential fluid, the transfer case fluid, and the power steering fluid, by Nissan's recommendations, are all non-serviceable. So at no mileage, she should have needed those services. They also told her she needed a fuel filter, and the fuel filter on that vehicle is not even serviceable. It's inside the fuel tank, so you can't get to it, This really upset me. And so we're reading on, and I'm looking at it, and then I noticed down the bottom, there's this tiny little print down the bottom. And we went through it, and it says that, I won't use the name of the place, but it rhymes with Balbeline. Their recommended general guidelines are based on the engine needs of a wide range of vehicles, but they don't say what vehicles, right? So there's a likelihood that they might be taking very high service vehicles, BMWs, Mercedes, Volkswagen, and basing their recommendations off of that. That's speculation, I don't know, but I know it's not a Honda, a Toyota, or a Chevy, or whatever most people drive. They also said that the service needs were also based on severe service guidelines. And when you, let's say, like I drive a Toyota Camry, so my Camry comes with a service schedule that's printed in the owner's manual. And that service schedule is very specific for my car. And there are two variations of the service schedule. One is daily driver, just your average, everything that we do every day with our cars. And then there's a severe service schedule. And the severe service schedule is for vehicles that are towing a trailer in a mountainous region, if you live on a dirt road, like extreme conditions. And that service schedule reduces the mileage between recommended services. So you're going to be servicing the vehicle more often because it's being used harder, it's more extreme conditions. So that's kind of like a double whammy with their recommendations because they seem to be recommending based on, a pool of probably vehicles that need a lot of service, and then they're doing the severe service schedule as well. So the reason I bring this up is because if she didn't call me or know better or know enough to say no, she would have been about $800 into services that the vehicle did not need. And this place wasn't necessarily lying because they are stating that they're kind of making up their own recommendations here. But a lot of people get taken by this tactic, and this bothers me because it's wasteful. And it's not going to cause any harm to the vehicle to do these services as long as they're using the proper fluids and whatnot. But it's, not a lot of people have $800 to throw at something for nothing. So it just bothers me. But the thing that really bugs me about this is they say that 70% of drivers fall into the severe service category. Over the course of owning my shop, I serviced probably about 2,000 customers, and I would say, if I'm being generous, 2% of them fell into the severe service category. So that is a nasty little zinger in there. And again, we don't know what pool of people they're gathering this information from, but I'm sure they were very selective when they gathered their information. So this bothers me a lot because this is very dishonest and wasteful. And the best thing that you can do to kind of guard against this is to know your vehicle's specific needs. Because Nissan does not have the same recommendations as Toyota or Honda or Chevy. They're all different mileage intervals. Some fluids are serviceable, some are not. So if you know your own vehicle's specific needs and your own driving habits to know if you do fall into the severe service category, when you go into these places, you can better guard against them giving you bad advice. So opening your own owner's manual, make a photocopy of the service recommendations. There's usually almost like a spreadsheet in there that shows you the mileages and what's needed and what's not needed. So if you kind of have that information on hand, then it's less likely that you're going to get taken by one of these. And I do wonder if she had said yes to the fuel filter, what they would have done, because you can't get. I almost wanted to say I'll pay for it. I just want to see if they're going to tell you that they did it. So that's one thing that bigger chains, and like I said, they're not necessarily lying, but they're not being very transparent as to where they're coming up with their numbers and recommendations and whatnot. So that's one thing. And does anybody have any questions about that or run into that themselves? Yes.
So I've run into probably an eighth of that.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
Okay.
For some reason the report disappeared and I wasn't able to show the more transparent mechanic that I take my car to.
Oh, you have a transparent mechanic?
Yes,
That's good. I always feel better when I hear that.
So, my husband, he's my husband's mechanic, and
Yeah.
thankfully I had him passed along to me
Good.
through marriage. So,
Yes. Oh, good. You married into a good mechanic.
but I have run into problems with recommendations for oil change.
Okay.
So I do appreciate you saying to be knowledgeable about what your vehicle needs, because that's not something that I'm very much knowledgeable about.
Yeah.
But I was told I would get my oil changed by a local chain, and they would tell me one thing, but the dealership would tell me another thing.
Yep.
And it was very frustrating because I went for an oil change for too long, and I mean, I'm assuming there wasn't too much of a consequence, but it was frustrating because I didn't know who to believe.
Right.
Or what guidelines to go by.
Right.
Because you'd think the dealership.
Yes.
I mean, you trust the dealership
Yep.
because it's particular
It's the
to your
dealer.
brand.
Yeah.
But it's just hard when people are telling you different things and you want to believe that they know what they're talking about, but they
Right.
might not. It can also just be that they're not properly trained or knowledgeable. And so
And
I kind of lost where it was going, but I've
That's
definitely
okay.
run into
No, hey, it's still a
the
good
issue or the
conversation.
problem of receiving conflict information about what my car needs, including from a dealership.
Right. So I'm glad you brought that up, because it is tricky, because you think that you could just not be too sure of this advice, so go somewhere else and get a second opinion, but then they don't jive, and then maybe you go online and you try to figure it out yourself, and now you've got a third line of information that doesn't jive either. And this is why I bring it up so often, that checking your owner's manual and finding out for sure your vehicle based on your driving, I'm not going to say skills, conditions and whatnot, is your best bet. Like, actually physically opening the owner's manual is your best bet, because if you go to a chain, they're basing it off of, like we just read, their own made up service schedule that has nothing to do with your car specifically. And then you go to the dealer, and they can still manipulate the severe service and the normal service. They might be telling you one or the other, and it's, and they're motivated to sell as much as they can. Okay, that's the motivation behind almost all of it, right? And then you go online, and I don't know if anybody's noticed, but like Google is pretty much broken at this point. Like, you cannot get a straight answer out of Google. So, and I tried it last night because I was curious about that, and I asked Google when my vehicle was due for a transmission fluid service, and it very confidently came up with some information that did not jive with my owner's manual recommendations. And so I think that the best bet is to do your own research, but your owner's manual, like not even Google, because it's just such a mess out there. But a lot of places, they're trying to sell you as much as they can. That's their motivation. And even when you go to a place like a dealership, and they've got the service writer. So one thing I don't really like about the dealership, I like it because it's tailored to your car. And they know your car very well, because that's the only brand that they work on. But the thing that I don't quite like about the dealership is that you've got the technician that's working on your car, and you've got the service writer that's talking to you, right? And they're separate, and they're both motivated to sell. So the technician is going to go through the car and make the recommendations to the service writer. The service writer is not going to go down there and make sure that this person's being truthful. And I'm not saying that they're like all mechanics are, but it just in anything. I mean, you can't go in and get a haircut without them trying to sell you, it's just the way of the world. You can't even go in and get a coffee without them trying to sell you something else. So it's just how it goes. But the dealership's a little tricky because, like I said, the tech is over here, service writer's here, they're both motivated to sell. Unless they've got a really good relationship and they're both transparent people, you kind of don't know, so having a good mechanic.
I see the evidence. I know, even if he's he's not just doing the work himself.
Right.
Like he has help.
Yes.
But I just trust him, and I know that I trust him. And
You don't even have to say more than that. You don't even have to really know why you trust him. You just trust him.
And it's he has years of experience, but he doesn't just throw it around. But I don't feel like he's trying to sell me something.
Right. Right.
He's actually recommended. Don't worry about this now. Maybe a year from now, you might have to get it worked on, or 2 years at most.
I should say.
Oh.
So,
Oh.
well, I think her engine at one point had a little bit of oil coming out of a gasket or something. Said, yeah, it happens. Sometimes replace it, but it's not that bad. You can wait 2 years.
Keep that mechanic. That's an honest mechanic. Yeah. Yep. And I bet he's busy.
He's
Thank
always
you.
busy.
Always busy. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to find honest mechanics, but they are out there. And the tricky thing is they're generally kind of quiet, and they're busy and they're not really looking for new customers. So they're not advertising. They're not flashy. They're very quiet. And that's why I tell people if they're looking for a mechanic, ask family, ask friends, ask people, because even if you Google and you look at people's, it's all ads, and it's even reviews are slanted, because there was a local shop to me when I was in business, and that shop and myself, we both had 5-star Google ratings, and a measurable amount of my work was fixing the bad work that shop was doing. And I was baffled. I'm like, well, how is this even possible? And I only heard it from one person, and obviously I wasn't there, so I can't say it's for fact, but I was told that they were offering a discount when you picked up your car if you gave a 5-star Google rating. Now, they're asking that as you're paying your bill before you've driven your car out of the shop. So you give them the review, they give you the discount, you leave, and the check engine light comes back on, or the brakes squeak or shake, or the exhaust is still out, or whatever the problem may have been. So you just have to be so careful. You can't. I don't think you can trust reviews, and you have to be self-educated to the needs of your car in order to keep all the upselling and sales pitches at bay. And so, a lot of what we talked about is just kind of slight dishonesty. They are kind of disclosing a bit down here, but who's going to read that? And it's still a little bit slanted. But there are also places that just plain old lie sometimes. And I had another customer, Allison, and this was another one that kind of woke me up to the fact that this was a problem. Just a really quick story. She was moving out of state, and so she asked me to do everything that her car needed, plus everything that it might need by the time she got to where she was going, so that she didn't have to immediately find a mechanic. So we did everything it needed and updated all the service needs to whatever the next major service was going to be. So we did the spark plugs early. We did a couple things early just so she didn't have to worry about it. And then her move, she was delayed. She didn't leave when she thought she was gonna, and she stayed long enough to need one more oil change. And I couldn't fit her in. So I said, go down the street, just get an oil change. Again, we know it needs nothing. And she sent me pictures of filters that they were showing her that did not even fit her car. So they were showing her this rusty, hers actually had an external fuel filter. It was an older Subaru. They were showing her this rusty, awful looking fuel filter, and that didn't belong to her car, air filter that didn't belong to her car. So that person was being wildly dishonest, and it's just awful to think about these things. But in her case, being able to just decline the services and leave, she was confident enough to do that. But I can imagine that other people would just go for it because you're looking at something that looks terrible. It's pretty tricky out there. And just before I keep rambling on, does anybody have any other thoughts or questions?
We actually have some online questions.
Okay.
Okay. So From Aaliyah, I recently changed both my front and rear brake pads and rotors. I've gotten mixed feedback on whether or not I need to change my brake fluid. Some mechanics I took it to for a second opinion have said you never need to change that for my car, a Mazda 3. And the dealership itself said the fluid is corrosive and can impact the performance of the car. How do I learn more and know what to believe?
So there are no like one size fits all answers for these things. We'd have to know a few things in her case, which we won't totally dive into. So we'll kind of broad stroke this one. As far as brake fluid goes, in my experience with cars, if someone had an incident where a caliper seized, and when that happens, the brakes get very, very hot because they stay on kind of a little bit constantly, and the brake fluid suffered overheating, that's when we would change it. If it looks to be contaminated, that's when we would change it. But for the most part, most cars don't require the brake fluid to be changed. So if she could find someone, so if she didn't have a major catastrophe that led her to needing front and rear brakes, she should be able to find somebody to just look at the condition of the coolant, the brake fluid, because it is supposed to be a somewhat sealed system, so there should be no contaminants in there. But generally, unless I was opening the brake fluid system, it doesn't often need to be changed. It's not a service fluid. And everybody kind of has different opinions on it, but my opinion would be if it's not contaminated and it didn't suffer a bad brake failure, then just leave it alone. Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We've got two more.
Okay.
Barbara asks, how do you find a truly honest mechanic?
Mike in Somerville. Finding a truly, so I'll be honest with you, trying to find a truly honest mechanic is difficult because a lot of times when people find them, they almost want to protect them. And people are very, selective as to who they recommend out to. But my advice is to ask people that you trust. So family members, friends, things like that. I'm like one more BS Google review away from saying don't trust reviews on Google. Don't do it. But you really just have to try out a few, and a lot of times it's about communication. And one thing I will say is that if you're recommended, if somebody says Mike in Somerville is really honest and you have a trusted friend that sends you there, you're kind of responsible for your relationship with that mechanic too. So one thing I had a hard time with was people coming through the door automatically not trusting me because I was a mechanic. And it made the development of the relationship really difficult. So if you do get recommended by a friend to a mechanic that they trust, you do have to give it time. And you have to work on your relationship with them too. Because the tricky thing with auto repair is that a lot of times you don't know if you got a bad repair until it's further down the road. So you go in with grinding brakes, you leave and your brakes aren't grinding, and you think, great, this is perfect. But then in a month or two, they're shaking because they used really cheap parts. It's like you don't know right away. So ask friends, treat the mechanic with some respect, and then give it time, and they are out there. But ask friends.
We have Janine who asks, I live on Cape Cod. I have a 2005 Golf. I read an article from a writer in Maine suggesting that you have your car undercoated for rust prevention yearly if you live by the ocean. What are your thoughts on that?
I would recommend it. Yeah. And another thing, especially now that we're kind of heading into the winter, sad to say, is one of the toughest things about owning a car in this area is the salt brine that they use on the roads now. So before we used to just contend with salt, now we have a calcium chloride mix that they use on the roads. So you can do all your oil changes and all your upkeep and all your filters and talk nice to the car and have like just do everything you can. But if you're not washing that car in the winter, getting the undercarriage sprayed to get that calcium chloride off, it's going to shorten the life of the car significantly because for two reasons. The rust is going to start taking over pretty quickly, and it's going to make every repair moving forward more and more difficult because things are going to get seized together. It's harder to access to get hardware apart, things like that. Exhaust will suffer. You'll run into repairs that are either made harder or caused by the salt they use in the roads, the brine they use on the roads. So undercoating, if you can, if it fits in the budget to do the undercoating, then definitely. And if not, just undercarriage car washes a few times a month during the winter months is really important. It goes a long way. I can almost promise that whatever you spend on the car washes, if you're planning on keeping your car long term, you're going to save in repairs on the long end, if you're keeping it long term. Is that it?
Okay. I think there's actually one more.
Okay.
I used to live in a more rural area where my car's brakes were not used as hard frequently, but living in Boston, that has changed quite a lot, as I'm sure you can imagine. I thought rotors lasted much longer, but was told by my mechanic recently that due to the quality of parts that are out there now, it is typical to change brake pads and rotors every 2 years. Does
Yeah.
this align with your experience?
This aligns with my experience. So we've seen a very, very serious downward trend in quality of parts. For the longest time, you would be able to use your rotors actually for a few brake jobs. We used to machine them, take them off the car, would put them on a lathe, would true them up, would clean them up, would put them back on, and use them 2 or 3 times. Now you are lucky if the rotors last the life of the brake pads. There was actually only one brand of brakes that I was still using at my shop that I was confident in. By the time I closed down, there are way more low quality products on the market now. I mean, it's saturated. It's absolutely saturated. So her mechanic is right in line with. It's unfortunate, especially if she's in stop and go traffic because they get hotter and the rotors get hot and they just can't withstand it. They're just made so poorly now. And it's a big, there's a big price spread between economy parts and high quality parts. So if her mechanic is using high quality parts and she's getting 2 years out of brake rotors in stop and go traffic, that sounds right on point. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's part of the struggle. You had a question?
Yeah. What do you recommend, if you go to a mechanic and they do the work and it's not done well? Yeah, sure. You go to a mechanic and the job isn't done well, do you have a right to go back? Do you even want to go back to the mechanic if, more issues come up or if that same issue persists?
Yeah.
And what do you have as a right as a consumer with that?
That's a tough one because going back is obviously uncomfortable, but I do encourage people to go back and hold the mechanic accountable, especially if they said that the problem was fixed. One thing I will say is cars are very finicky and they're getting harder and harder to repair, so it's not uncommon to, let's say, did you have an experience recently that, was it related to a check engine light or was it?
No, it was just, sorry.
That's why I don't have one of those right now. That's why I went for this.
It was just a lot of rattling.
Okay.
And I thought maybe, I don't know anything. I just thought it would just need to be tightened up, something would be tightened up. But I went in, I think I paid, I can't remember what the work was that was done, but it was over $1,000.
Yeah.
I was just oh, okay. And it's been maybe 3 months and the same thing is.
The same noise is back. But was it gone when you left the shop?
It was.
Yeah. So that could be what I would suspect happened is it sounds like they found the problem, replaced the part, and probably that part is defective, if I had to guess. So it's important to go back and tell them, because if it is a defective part, if it's within their warranty, whatever warranty they might have given you on that, then it's up to them to replace that for free. And there are so many poor quality products on the market right now that it's such a common thing. And it's one thing that was making my job really difficult was, I would go and diagnose something, fix it, find the failed part, replace the failed part, proper install, but the part was not what it promised to be, and the noise would come back. I would always cover that because that's not my customer's fault. It's not my fault either, but it's just, I'm responsible for picking the part. But I would
there should
definitely-
always be a warranty, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. Generally, shops will do, it depends on the work, but generally shops will have some sort of warranty, mileage and time that is on the repair order that they will cover the part for and the labor. So have you gone back to them? Have you
I have
talked
not.
to them? I'd go back. Yeah, I'd go back and just tell them it's the same noise, it's back, and if it's just a faulty part, hopefully they can go in and just take care of that for you. But it's a tricky thing, and it's uncomfortable to go back and make a complaint.
Yeah.
But I think if you spent $900, $1,000 to make a noise go away, you get every right to go back and tell them the noise is still there. But as far as like putting your foot down and your rights and everything, it really depends on what their warranty was. And it also depends on them being honest with, whether or not they're going to tell you it's a new noise, or if it's a failed part, or if they got it wrong. But it could even be just something needs to be tightened. Maybe the new part needs to be tightened up. Sway bar links are a big one, and so I would go back.
Okay,
I'd
thank you.
tell them, yeah, even though it's uncomfortable, but you should. Yeah.
You had mentioned a lot about like the owner's manuals. What about for older cars specifically? At least personally, I'm asking about. I am currently saving up for like a '66, '68 Mustang.
Yep.
Has no owner's manual.
Right.
How do I know what I'm supposed to be doing as far as fixing, when to fix it? Where can I kind of go to just learn more about the mechanics of a car so I can try to do as much as I can on my own?
You said it was a 66. I would look up, you could probably pop on eBay and try to find service manuals and repair manuals for that car. I wouldn't recommend like just going on Google because there's too much bad information on the internet. But if you can find yourself even a Chilton's manual, which is kind of an aftermarket repair manual for that car, or the actual Ford repair manual, it's going to have a ton of information in there, a lot of do-it-yourself stuff, and there should be in there service recommendations. But that's a little different because you're not going to be driving it every single, or are you driving it every single day? It's not your daily driver, right? Is it?
Not immediately, no.
Okay, yeah, cool car though. So usually for something like that, the vintage cars, because they're a lot different than the newer cars. So the newer cars, everything is really sealed. The fluids that we use in them are, newer, higher quality fluids. Older cars, you kind of want to stick to the old recommendations. Like back in the day, service schedules were kind of the same for all cars. People would do their spark plugs once a year. They'd do their oil changes every 3,000 miles. And you would always be greasing the front ends because they were serviceable, checking the wheel bearings, because the cars were a little bit more standard back in the 60s. So just as a baseline, you would want to be doing an oil change about every 3,000. You're going to be wanting to check brakes, front end, thing like that, a couple times a year, depending on how many miles you do on it. But the rules for servicing the old cars are a little bit different than the new cars. But I would definitely recommend getting a couple service manuals for it and just read up on it, just the needs of that car. But
If I do have to take it to a mechanic, you think it'd be worth the investment of just taking it to like a specialty shop, like these, this specific shop works on these older cars versus just any type of mechanic?
What would be really nice is to find a good mechanic, like the guy in Somerville, that's willing to work on an old car. That's going to be your best bet. But a lot of mechanic shops, like daily driver shops, like what I had, we didn't want to take in the vintage cars because they're just not the same speed of, like, they don't really fit in with what we're doing as far as availability of parts and what we might run into on them and whatnot. So it's hard to find an everyday independent shop that will take them in. But I would call around, and then as far as like the shops that specialize in vintage vehicles, it's worth trying out. A lot of times they're kind of a little more specialized and really high end, and so that's a little tricky. It's tough to find someone to work on the vintage stuff these days, mostly due to availability in parts and what you might run into while you're working on that car, because that car's got a long history. We don't know what kind of work's been done to it. But you know, if you're not, if you're into doing it yourself, they're also very simple. So doing oil changes and things like that yourself would be easier on that car than a lot of the newer cars. But is it new to you? Did you like recently get it?
I'm going to, not yet.
Oh, you're going to? Okay. Is it like a high end? Is it a $30,000 Mustang? Okay, perfect. Yeah, you might want to look around for an older independent shop with a grumpy old guy back there that's worked on them when they were new, and just find somebody to take it in. But just don't be surprised if some of the more popular independent shops kind of shy away from it, because we got burned a lot on trying to do the vintage stuff, and so this kind of like having a vintage car like that, it's tough. It's tough, but you'll find it actually. And if you take it to like cruise nights and car shows, you can ask other people that have vintage cars where they take them. Yep, for sure. And before I carry on, does anybody have any questions?
I think we have some more virtual questions. I did see a couple people asking for specific information about Mike in Somerville. So what I think I might do is I will get that information.
You want to be careful. He's probably very busy. He's awesome, though. You know what's funny though is I did a talk at the Lars Anderson, and I am so sure I heard about Mike in Somerville at the Lars. This is sounding very familiar. But I will say, just so if you ever find a mechanic that tells you, oh, you got a little leak, but we're not going to worry about now, we're just going to keep an eye on it, or, oh, you could use this, but we could probably do it after the summer, and blah, 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 or just they start kind of forecasting the work out, and they're not trying to sell it to you right then, that's a good mechanic. That's a good mechanic, because they're making you aware of things that you're going to need, but they're not pushing it on you right now. And especially if a mechanic is going to give you a prioritized list, like this is what I recommend now and this is what we should think about in the future, that's a sign of a pretty honest mechanic too. But when you roll in and all you thought you needed was an oil change, and all of a sudden they're coming out with $1,000 estimate, that's should raise a little bit of a red flag. Yeah, yep, for sure.
Okay. I can also try to get that information about Mike, and then if anyone wants to email me, I can get you that information.
Oh, poor Mike.
Should I text him now? After hours? Like,
Yeah.
I'd be like, you should just tell him, be like, Mike, I'm so sorry, but you're gonna have a couple voicemails in the morning. It is good for business. It is good for business. But if he's really busy, I'm almost feeling bad at this point.
All right, we do have some more questions.
Sure.
I just bought my first car, brand new. What maintenance should I look out for to maintain the longevity, like the undercoating, etc.?
Okay, brand new. Right now, all they've got to worry about is keeping it clean and doing whatever the manufacturer recommends. So first oil change is important, and then I'm sorry, I assumed it was a girl, but probably not going to have to worry about too much, but keeping it clean and having it undercoated or car washes is important, because like they're starting fresh. This car has no dark history. We don't know, it's just like you're starting off at the beginning, and you've got the opportunity to maintain it well. And so the two biggest responsibilities are going to be keeping it clean and doing whatever the recommendations are by the manufacturer for that car, which can be found in the owner's manual. If they still come with owners, they probably have QR codes inside the glove box now, I don't know, but just do whatever the manufacturer tells you to do and keep it clean. Two biggest things. And even along the lines of keeping it clean, especially if you're going to be keeping a car long term, it is important to get in there and, if you want to keep it nice, vacuuming it out, keeping the paint clean. Because if you think about it, if you got a dirty car, there's grit on it and whatnot. If you brush up against that, it puts all these tiny little micro scratches in the paint, and over time, like, the paint will dull down. So that's one of the reasons that keeping a car clean is good for the long-term appearance of the car. It's not like it's going to start to rust out because it got scratched, but it's just a good practice. It's a really good practice. Yeah.
So my dad is looking for a new car, and there's like two options, right? He has a scooter, so he wants to either be able to put the scooter in the car or do a hitch. What would you recommend? I'm more pro putting the scooter in the car because I feel like maybe the hitch might wear on the car or something over time.
It would be really nice if he could get set up to be able to put the scooter in the car. For the scooter's sake, being out on the, because like if he's going to be driving around in bad weather or when they've got the salt on the roads, things like that. Also, it protects it because, when you get the scooter on the back, if God forbid somebody rear ends you or something like that, it's just a bigger mess. And when you put the hitch, now you've got the hitch that you have to worry about, you've got the cart thing in the back that you gotta be thinking about. It's a little bit more when you're backing up, having that extra clearance behind you and stuff. I would be super pro trying to get it into the vehicle if possible. But there are plenty of people that do just fine with the scooters on the little, like, almost like a luggage rack that they put on the back. If he is going to go that route, I would definitely go with a high quality hitch and a high quality rack, because sometimes you'll see people drive it around with things like kind of hanging off the back. It's just like, oh geez, that's awful. But yeah, if you can get it inside, that'd be great for many reasons.
Also, I have a mechanic to recommend just in case we don't want to overwear.
Yeah.
Jason at Muffler Mart near
Okay.
Jackson Square.
Okay.
He did some complimentary work for my dad, which is nice.
Yep.
Because my dad's elderly and stuff and everything. And then he did air in the tires for $20.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah.
Jason at Muffler Mart near Jackson Square in JP/Roxbury.
Perfect. So Jason, perfect. Great.
We have another question. You mentioned that the quality of parts has gone down. Is there a way to investigate that a mechanic is using better quality aftermarket parts? Is it better to go for OEM parts for peace of mind? And she says, thank you for answering her other question.
Okay. That's tough. I think it's okay to ask what parts the mechanic is using, and ask if they're putting quality parts on. It's just so tricky though, because even what we would consider to be quality parts for so long, a lot of them have declined in quality. So it's just overall, there's a total decline. But I think it's important to at least ask the mechanic if they're using economy parts, or if they are, can you upgrade to the better part, because you're going to get more life out of it, so it'll pay for itself in the long run. And even ask what brand they're using, and do a little research yourself. But research it's just it's a little bit of a waste of time. But by the time I closed, there were only 3 or 4 brands that I was using for anything, because that's hundreds of brands to choose from, and there was just only a few that I was comfortable using in the end. So it's very, very tricky, but I would definitely ask if they're using high quality parts. And then as far as going with OEM, it's always the safe bet, but the cost difference between even a quality aftermarket in an OEM can be shocking sometimes. So if it fits the budget, go with OEM. But if it's not in the budget, then ask about what parts they're using and if there's an option to go with the highest grade aftermarket parts, because there still are a few good ones out there.
What's OEM, please?
What's that?
What's OEM?
OEM is original manufacturers. No, original equipment. It's original. I'm sorry. I should know that right off the top of my head. It's basically the original manufacturer that made the parts for your car. So, like, I drive a Toyota, so OEM parts would be like going to Toyota and getting Toyota branded rotors and brake pads and replacement parts. It's probably the best you can do, but a lot of times it's going to be the most expensive by a lot sometimes. But OEM. I'm only drawing a blank on that because you asked. But it's just original equipment. So the manufacturer that makes the parts for Toyota is who's making that part. And like I said, they're the best quality parts you can buy, but sometimes they're shockingly expensive, which is unfortunate. Were there any other questions before I carry on? Yeah.
Yeah. So I always thought, or read or told that the number one thing you can do to have a long-lasting car is oil change. Is that still the case, or is it's that plus other things that you shouldn't forget about?
It's going to be that plus other things.
Yeah.
So oil changes are probably one of the most important. They're the most frequent, and they're the most important for a few reasons. If you've got a good mechanic, it's a reason for the car to come into the shop and kind of get checked out once over. And also, as oil, and I don't know this, I'm not an oil scientist. I don't know this for fact, but in my experience, I serviced enough cars that I had comparisons that I could make. So if I've got two very, very similar cars, and one got oil changes every time they would do, let's say, every 5,000 miles, and the other one was not good at coming in when they needed an oil change, and they were stretching theirs out to 10,000 miles or maybe a little bit more. One thing I noticed over time was that the vehicle that was less frequently serviced would develop more oil leaks. And I don't have any scientific proof of why this was happening, but I think that over time, the gaskets and whatnot were drying out and things like that, or something was happening with the oil that was actually degrading the gaskets in the motor. So oil changes are going to be the biggest one to keep up with for the sake of the motor. And then if the transmission requires service periodically, do that when it's due, and really don't ignore anything. That's the biggest thing. I always tell people, like, if you see something, you smell something, you hear something that doesn't seem right to you, have it checked out. Because even if you're not a mechanic, nobody knows your car better than you do. And I would tell my customers that all the time. Like, I understand, I'm a mechanic, but I don't drive your car every single day. You do. So you know your car better than I do. So if anything is changing with it, doesn't seem right, seems different, take it in, don't ignore it.
One last thing is also, I was kind of curious, is so like a lot of times, you go out to auto parts stores and they have like Techron and stuff. So maybe not my current car, but one or two I had before that I would put in regularly. Mm-hmm. Is that like it's a fuel system cleaner? Is that just BS, or is that like actually doing anything?
I don't think it's BS. It probably does a little less for the newer cars than it did for the older cars. But I think that products like Lucas makes a lot of good oil additives and transmission fluid additives, things like that. I do believe in that. And the Techrons, the fuel system cleaners and things like that. I think that there is something to it. There's also a lot of snake oil for sale out there, but the top brands, there is something to it. I can't explain it, but if it's not a bad practice to use those things. I don't think they're entirely necessary, but it's certainly not a bad practice.
Yep.
Especially some of those additives, I think they're helpful.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We still have a bunch of actual questions.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
I think the next one. Colleen asks, should I give up on manual transmission? I love shifting, but it seems as though the world has moved on.
The world has moved on, and I'm so sorry. It might come back. But it's definitely getting a little trickier. Finding cars with manual transmissions, I would say don't give up, but you're definitely going to limit your options of what cars you can buy. So I wouldn't want to find yourself in a lesser quality car just for the sake of having a clutch, unless it really means that much to you. But it's sad. It's just not a thing anymore. And even at that, there are fewer people out there willing to replace a clutch. So finding someone to service it if it needs something is a little harder. I would say don't give up on it, but it's going to make that car more of like almost like a specialty car if you do pursue keeping a manual transmission, even though they're fun. They are wonderful.
All right. Christina says her car has over 200,000 miles. How do I know when it's not worth it to do a repair?
Okay, that's where having a good mechanic comes in. If she drives a Toyota, then I would say don't even worry about it. It's just broken in. But it's so true. Do you guys do Toyota? Yeah. Honda. So my spiel was always that Toyota is the best product you can buy that has wheels on it. Like you cannot do better than a Toyota for so many reasons, from the quality of the vehicle itself to the support that they have with the parts available for them, the way Toyota as a company operates. We could be here all night and just hear me say Toyota 1,000 times. It's like the last thing that truly works in this world is a Toyota. I love them so much. I recommended them to my customers so much that at one point in time I was afraid I was going to put myself out of business because they didn't need me anymore. But so when a vehicle reaches about 200,000 miles, it's going to depend on the vehicle and the condition of the vehicle. If you've got a rust-free Toyota, don't even think about it. If you've got a rusty, Chevy Sonic, then you're gonna want somebody to look at it. A lot of times it's gonna more so be the condition of the vehicle than the mileage on the motor. So if that's 200,000 miles of no car washes, in the salt, tough conditions, a little banged up, then you might be getting to that point. But that's going to be up to a mechanic to look at, and that's when you're going to want to start asking the question: is it worth it? So if she goes into a mechanic and they say, "Oh, you need $1,000 worth of brakes," you're going to want to ask, is there anything else you see that I'm going to need in the immediate future? What do you think the overall condition is? Blah, blah, blah. But if it's Toyota, don't even worry about it.
We have a similar question from Barca. What are some of the best options for good, affordable cars to buy today?
It's Toyota. Toyota. So affordable cars, so there are really no affordable cars anymore. Your entry-level car is probably going to be between like $6,000 and $9,000, which is crazy. If your best option, if you're looking for an affordable car, is to try to go with a Toyota if you can. Something that's clean, 4-cylinder would be great because they hardly need anything. And the reason being is they require so little. And usually when you're looking for an affordable car, you're on a budget. So you might be able to get yourself into a $4,000 car, but it might need $3,000 worth of work in short time. So you kind of want to be looking at get as much as you can out of the initial purchase, but also be kind of looking down the road, like what is this car going to require in the future. But if you're on a budget and you're looking for an entry-level affordable car, you're really going to want to look for a Toyota, and I'm just gonna say it 1,000 times. They're just the best things. I had a customer, and she got a Toyota Yaris, like when she got out of high school. And she's like, when she was in high school. No, when she got out of high school. And she's like, I just need it to get me through my first year of college. That's all I need. And so we got through the first year of college with the Yaris. She's like, I just needed to get me through college, and that's it. And so we get her through college with it. And she's like, I just needed to get me through my first job. And so we did that. And then the years just kept ticking by and ticking by and ticking by, and she got married, and she's like, I just need to see if the baby seat fits in the back, and it's just like, that car just kept going and going and going. So I just tell people, like, if you can get yourself in a Toyota, it's just gonna be so much better for you and your mechanic, because they're so easy to work on. Sorry, I love Toyota. Open up my shirt, I got a Toyota shirt on.
Amy wants to know, what's the brand of rotors that you trust?
I use a brand called Power Stop. And surprisingly, they're not shockingly expensive, but they are just the best brakes that I've ever used. In fact, I installed them on my Toyota last night because I needed to get here without my brakes. I was telling people, I'm like, if I show up to this thing with my oil change light on and my brakes grinding, I'm just, I'm gonna be such a jerk. So I worked late last night to do the brakes on my car before I came here, and I used Power Stop. They're just, to me, in my experience, they're the best brakes you can get without breaking the bank. Yeah, I pulled them out. I did them at my friend's shop, and I pulled the box out and I opened it up, and there's that beautiful coated rotor. I love it so much. And I'm like in the shop, and I'm like, I love these things. He's like, you're holding that thing like a baby. I'm like, it is a baby, I love these. So, and what I love about that company is I've never seen anything change in their quality. So like, even you look for, so when you're installing parts all day long, you're always looking for something to be changing, because all it takes is your loved brands to change manufacturers or get a contract with some other, place that's making them or whatever. And for the longest time, nothing has changed with that brand. So I still trust them, even though I'm not installing them anymore, except for last night. So, Power Stop, Toyota.
Boston has a rat problem. Mice damaged my engine when I left it parked in Boston last fall for 3 weeks while I was out of the country. What can I do to prevent this from happening again, other than driving more?
Driving more, obviously, if they sit, that's when the mice and whatnot move in. There's a product that I've used for years, and it's, oh man, I need to write this down so I can know offhand. But there are these pouches that you can buy on Amazon, and they have, it's like peppermint and something else in them, and they're the only thing that I've used that I'm pretty sure worked, because I leave cars, I have a couple of vintage cars, and they have to stay outside, covered up during the winter, and that's usually when mice will move in. In the last couple of years, I've been using these peppermint pouches that you can get off of Amazon, and I've not had a mouse problem since I've been using them. So for some of my customers that had mouse problems, like even if their car was just sitting for a couple of days, they would get in under the hood. Sometimes they get into the car. So we started putting them under the hood of the cars, stuffed in places where they won't fall out and cause a problem. And I definitely saw a reduction in the mice problems. I just can't remember. I think it was something like Uncle Gus. Hold on. If I can't find it in like 2 seconds, then...
Someone says Grandpa Gus?
Grandpa Gus. I just found it. Thank you, someone. So Grandpa Gus, mouse repellent products available on Amazon. And I can't say why they work, but for me, they worked. And what's nice is they're just these, they look like oversized tea bags, and you just stick them in under the hood. You can stick them inside the car, put one under the seat, whatever. They smell nice. It's not like the old school where we used to do mothballs and it smelled terrible, or bounce sheets, which never worked. These things work, they smell nice, and I would definitely do that. And also, just trying to not let the car sit for too long, even if it just means firing it up and taking it around the block to scare them out, and not keeping food in the car. So I had a lot of mouse problems with mom mobiles that had the crumbs and everything in the cars, because the mice would get into the car through the vents, through like the air intakes and whatnot, and get in there and cause havoc. So keeping the car clean, starting it periodically, driving it, and Grandpa Gus. Yeah, yep, definitely give it a shot.
That's horrifying. I never knew the thought that mice can get into the car. I knew that they can nest in the engines. Maybe just like add it to my list of things that I have to.
List of things to worry about. So I will say, so it was only a couple cars that I had problems with, and that's when I did a little investigating, and a lot of newer cars, when you shut them off, no matter what your HVAC like setting is, so if you have the vent set to fresh air, which opens the heating and air conditioning system up to outside air, even if you have that on when you shut the car off, the car will automatically close those vents to keep mice out, to seal the inside of the car. So a lot of cars, you actually don't have to worry about that. I just had a handful of cars where they were coming in through the vents and getting into the car. So you might not have to worry about it too much. And one thing that we just made a practice of with some of those cars was I did actually put chicken wire over the inlets so that they couldn't get in, because the mice were just so relentless for these couple of customers. But even just closing the vents when you park the car, and having your cabin air filter checked periodically, because if they come in, a lot of times they have to get through the cabin air filter to get into the car. So if you have that checked from time to time during the bad mouse season, they'll be able to see if something's been nibbling at it to try to get through, or sometimes they nest on it. That's as far as they go. So yeah, sorry for giving you something to worry about.
I just want to add to like the rodent issue in
Yeah.
Boston. The city is keeping track of things, so you can report sightings via 311, and then they are trying to like target hotspots, like come out, fix the trash cans and things like that. So if this does keep happening,
Right.
you can also report it on 311 in the city. I don't know about other municipalities, but for the state of Boston,
Yeah.
because it's also a big problem in New York.
Oh,
So
is it?
my friend had his car chewed out in New York.
It's so bad,
Yeah.
and it's so tough.
And as the
'cause
climate gets warmer, they have a longer season. So they're starting to also travel into like suburbs as well.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. Sorry, I didn't mean to be the bearer of bad news.
Yeah, and even because we did a little thing for Channel 10 News to kind of promote this, and I pulled up in my Camry, and they were like, "Oh, can you open the hood and we'll do like a thing where you open the hood and blah blah blah." And I opened the hood, and I could see, and I didn't know this was happening because I recently moved to New Hampshire, so it's a little bit more like wooded. But mice had been eating the engine cover on my car, and I didn't even know, this is the first time I opened the hood in a while. So even just, opening the hood and looking around to see if they're getting in there, you'll see, there'll be little missing pieces of your engine covers and whatnot. But it is pretty awful because they tend to go after wiring, and that can get very expensive, very expensive. So Grandpa Gus under the hood and try to fire him off as much as you can just to scare him out of there. But yeah, it's awful. It's just one of those things that is just an environmental thing. But yeah, one more thing to worry about for sure, unfortunately.
We have 15 minutes left, so I'm going to try
Okay.
to group up some of these questions online.
Sure.
we have two questions about Toyota. Is it worth buying a new Toyota car, or is used always a better option? And Colleen would really appreciate your recommendations with regards to Toyota Priuses, dealers to look to or stay away from, years, etc.
So I'm going to start with the question that I can remember. Toyota Prius, I trust them completely. I would go with a Toyota Prius any day, and they're super reliable. They're great vehicles. I wouldn't be afraid of a Prius at all. And then, what was the first question?
Is it worth buying a new Toyota car, or is used always a better option?
Used is a better option for the budget. You know, if you're in a position where you can afford a brand new car and you want to start fresh with something, and like have a clean slate and keep it long term, then new, if it fits the budget, is great. But if we're kind of asking the question because of the budget, I would definitely go with used, even if it's just a couple years old, because you're not going to run into a lot of problems in a couple of years, and especially if you can catch something that's just come off lease. It's pretty good. So maybe like 3 years, 30,000 miles, somewhere in there. If you can catch them when they come off lease, that's a good time to get a used vehicle. So just a couple years old is going to save you a bundle, and especially if you're looking at a Toyota, you really don't have to worry about, you know, wear and tear on the vehicle. So you'll be fine there. But yeah, used is good. Yeah.
Vanessa wants to know, how much is too much to spend on repairs over time versus getting a new car?
That depends on the car. That's a tough question to answer. Would kind of have to know a little bit more. It's going to depend on the car. It's going to depend on the condition. Tough to answer that one. But again, if you have a trusted mechanic, they should be able to tell you when enough is enough with the vehicle.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually have two more recommendations for mechanics. So I'm just going to say them.
Okay.
We have Hannibal's in Dorchester, which I will actually second because that's my mechanic.
Okay. Good. Good.
So Vanessa says they make you aware of possible repairs for the future, but don't push you for services.
That's a good
which
sign.
Is exactly my experience.
Yep. That's a good sign.
And there's another one. Oh, Amy says Eddie at BBC in Somerville.
Okay. Somerville's a popular spot.
Yeah.
We got some honest mechanics out there. That's good. That's good.
We have, let's see. I know that utilizing the owner's manual for your specific car is best, but are there any general preventative service recommendations you have for 15 or 20 plus year old cars? For example, should I be asking my mechanic to check on my timing belt or other potentially large repairs in a preventative manner rather than waiting for something to break/go wrong? My car has 180,000 miles on it, and I'm trying to get her to 200,000, if not more.
Okay. Yeah. So definitely want to know if the timing belt is due to be serviced on any vehicle. So usually the way it kind of is, your oil changes are your most frequent, tire rotations kind of fit in the middle there, then spark plugs usually once or twice in the life of your average new vehicle, transmission services, and then timing belt is usually the furthest one out, but the most important if your vehicle has a timing belt. That's going to be one that you want to know when it's due and take care of it at that time, because missing that, and if the timing belt were to break, causes internal engine damage that a lot of times if by the time, usually timing belts are due at over 100,000 miles, and if it breaks and you get 100,000 miles in the car, 130, wherever you're at, it's not uncommon to replace the motor at that point, and average motor replacements are usually the $9,000 range. So it's just not, you want to know. So if there's anything on that person's list, it would be know if the timing belt's been replaced and do it. So yeah, and that will be in the owner's manual too. It's going to tell you oil changes, all the fluids, spark plugs, timing belts, anything important to keeping that car, the longevity of that car is going to be in there. Yep, super important. And is there anything else before I try to squeeze in as much as I can in the last 10 minutes? No?
We have a question about car washes that was kind of interesting.
Oh, cool. What do we got?
I would love to know more about how to keep a car clean. Car washes seem to have bad reviews online. What's a reasonable amount to pay for a car wash?
Reasonable amount to pay for car wash is probably going to be somewhere in like the $20 range for a drive-through one. And really important is to make sure it has the undercarriage spray. That's like one of the biggest reasons. From a mechanic's point of view, it's the most important part. So you're probably going to be looking at $20 average, $24 if you want to get like the extra shine stuff and things like that. And it seems like a lot at the time, but if you're planning on keeping the car long term, especially in the winter, if you could do that once a month, twice a month, or if we have a snow event and they use a lot of treatments on the roads, wait till the roads are dry and then take it through and just get the best car wash you can. Just get all of that off. We're not as worried about the buildup on the paint on the outside of the car as we are the buildup on the underside of the car. So whatever the price is, it's going to be worth it in the long run. But I think 20 to 24 is like the average. Yep. So there was a ton more I wanted to try to fit in today, but we've actually had some really good questions, so it's fine. It's totally fine. One thing I do want to throw in there also is we're coming into colder weather, and this is when you're going to start to see your tire pressure light come on. And just a wicked quick rundown on that. It's something you really don't want to ignore because as we go into the colder weather, there's a couple things that happen. Cold air like kind of contracts, so the tire pressure actually drops a little bit, and that's when you'll trigger your tire light to come on. So it's important as we go into the cold weather to throw a little extra air in your tires to kind of balance that out. And one of the things that I think, well, I know a lot of my customers didn't realize until I started preaching it, is riding around on a low tire is just never a good idea. So if you see the light come on, it is important to get that taken care of. And if it keeps coming on, you keep putting air in the same tire, have it checked out, have it looked at, because tires, they're not designed to run low. And you could damage the tire pretty badly. So that's one of the things. So a lot of tire light, mine came on yesterday morning because it was cold up in New Hampshire. So it's just getting to be that time to add a little air to the tires, make sure they're where they're supposed to be. Make sure your tires are in good condition as we're going into the winter months, because obviously traction in the snow and whatnot. And I don't know, there's a whole bunch more I wanted to preach, but I think we're kind of coming to the end here. Did anybody else have anything else that they wanted to share or ask? Okay, and then we'll grab you in 1 second.
Do you have like a newsletter or Instagram, or do you like?
I have an Instagram, but it's all pictures of my car. Not my Toyota. Not my Toyota. So I am working on, so doing things like this is just sort of a test run to see if this is actually something that people are interested in. The one thing I did not let go of from my old shop was my website. So foxyauto.com is still foxyauto.com, but I'm sort of redoing it to support this. And what I'd like to do is, if people are interested in it, what I would like to do is have that for upcoming events and whatnot, and it is partially set up for that right now, and then start doing a little bit of like YouTube and social media and right now. But at the moment, if you look me up, you're just gonna see pictures of a purple 64 Impala station wagon. It's the only thing I have out there. But no, you can, I am on Facebook, and that's a place where people find me often. And then if you have any questions, foxyauto@gmail.com is where people will send me questions still, because I am still in touch with a lot of my customers because I just love them so much. And so they, often email in with questions about, thinks they're being recommended from their new customers. So if you want to find me, foxyauto@gmail.com. You can email me there with any questions. And then foxyauto.com will have more information once I learn more about building websites. Right now, I can't get the menu button to work. I got to figure that out. Did you? It's not working. I know. And I redid the whole dang thing, and I'm just, it works. It works on the buildings, the site where you build it, but it just, I don't know. I think it's because the website was so old. I just went in and changed all the wording, but tried to keep it this. And I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'll find a tech savvy friend. But yeah, so those 3 places you can find me. And just please feel free to email with questions and whatnot. But we're at the very, very beginning stages of seeing if this is something that people are interested in. So it's not totally set up yet. And if you're interested in seeing a purple lowrider, you can go check that one out on Instagram. Or talk about my Camry. But is that it for time? Are we pretty much wrapped up? 5 minutes. Does anybody have a 5-minute question? Yeah.
We have some more online questions too, so.
Okay, first we're gonna do this.
So 2 things I wanted to ask. Oh, yeah, sorry. Have you ever considered, doing a class for women, look under the hood, you know,
Yes.
this is how you do an oil change, this is how you do a tire change? Because I would travel to New Hampshire.
You would?
Oh, I totally would.
Okay, so.
Because I don't know where to find something like that, and it's so
Right.
important.
So I do classes, actually in a couple of weeks, I'm doing a big one with the Girl Scouts where I go in and, so the answer is yes, but not open to everybody. So I work with the Girl Scouts and do classes on just that. Changing a tire, we do it in real time on my Camry. We go in, we do it together, jump starting cars, checking oil, adding washer fluid, small things like that, just getting comfortable under the hood, learning how to open your hood. Yes, the answer is yes, I do those classes, but right now they're just for the Girl Scouts because that's who I'm working with. But I am looking for feedback from people to see if that's something they would be interested in.
I would.
And sounds like you would be interested in
Yeah,
that.
I know some friends with.
Make that happen through the library, maybe not at this location, but
Yeah.
someplace with
I think it would be great because, one of the things I think is important is the more you understand, the less you are fearful of things, and the less scary things seem, the more you understand. And I think that if you can so I did a class last year with the Girl Scouts, and it was for older Girl Scouts. And a lot of the women that worked with the Girl Scouts ended up coming into the class too. So it turned into a pretty good crowd. And it was the difference between seeing someone change a tire online and seeing someone do it in real time and explain it and you be part of it was such a big difference for them. And you could just see that in the beginning they were very timid with it, but then once they understood it and saw it happen, it made a big difference. So I'm very pro knowing how to change your own tire, jump start a car, and basic fluid top-offs and things like that. And if you wanted to try to set that up too, I'd love to do that because, one of the things that's happened in the last probably 6 years or so is that, a lot of people will say, oh, I have AAA, so I don't need to know it. But sometimes the wait times on AAA are hours and hours and hours, and you never get a flat in a good place. You want to kind of minimize how much time you have to spend on the side of the road and things like that. So I think that's it's important. Looks like you agree.
Well, I also have 2 dogs, and AAA almost left me and my 2 dogs on the side of a highway because they wouldn't take dogs. And I was like, well, we're coming back from a camping trip. I'm not. So, and luckily I had family close by that was able to come get us. Mm-hmm. But they were either going to leave us on the side of the highway with a car that couldn't drive.
Right.
Or I would have to my dogs would have to disappear.
Right.
And that wasn't going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
And so, and yeah, she's had her own
Yeah, you've had
It's just, it's not convenient ever. And
no. People feel very confident. They got their AAA card. They feel good about things. And then when you sit on the side of the road for 6 hours waiting for someone to come in the winter, in the cold, waiting for somebody.
Midnight.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. So we.
And then they get there and say, I can't actually bring.
I can't do anything for you.
Like, oh.
No, I know. And that's why, I just feel it's so important to know some of these things, even if it's just changing a tire, because it can get you out of a potentially bad situation, if you can do that yourself. So yes, I think it's something everybody should know. And even simple things like topping off your washer fluid. You've driven in the winter, and we've all run out of washer fluid in the winter, and you get the white streaks on the windshield, and it's awful, and it's a safety issue at that point. But some people, they've just never opened their hood before, so it's like intimidating. So yes, teaching. Wipers, the actual wipers themselves, I think it's very important to, and I didn't bring it in with me, and I meant to, but another reason I'm so pro looking at your owner's manual is because, like which I wish I had brought it, but my Toyota owner's manual, in there's very clear step-by-step directions with pictures and very easy to follow descriptions as to how to change your tire. And it's so easy to absorb because the picture in the manual is of your car. It's your car. It's so tailored. It's not somebody on YouTube trying to tell you how to do it to get clicks and likes or whatever. It's your car, and it's step by step, and they're going to cover every single thing that you need to know in there. And same goes for jump starting a car. In the owner's manual, they will tell you exactly where the battery is, how to do it, why you should do it this way. There's so much education in that owner's manual. That's why they're this thick. And if you have a Toyota, there's actually a dedicated section in there for DIY, do it yourself. It's going to be, that I do know the acronym for. And it's going to have everything from, like we said, tire change, jump starting, to changing bulbs. So your headlight goes out, and they're going to have step-by-step, as long as you don't have an HID, but if you have a conventional bulb, they're going to tell you step-by-step what to take out, where it's going to be, how to twist it to get it out, what bulb you need to put it back in. And that's going to save you a fortune if you have to go to a shop and have them do that. And so there's just so much in there. I'm so pro owner's manual. If your car still comes with one, I don't know what technology has done to that, but yeah, and so yes, I do want to pursue giving courses and whatnot on that, and especially for young drivers. Obviously for anybody that's interested, but especially for young drivers too, just to give them a little independence, because you can't count on AAA. They're great when they show up, if you don't have dogs. Perfect. So I think that's about it. So yeah, I didn't even get into I had my whole binder of stuff, but there's so much more, but I think we at least got a starting point, and I hope you guys took something of value away from this. So thank you very much. Okay. Thank you.